What is my thesis? My thesis is that your speech doesn't need to be perfect. Okay. Communication is incredibly important, but do I have the camera on? Communication is incredibly important. We know this, but I think at times we undervalue how important it is. And a proof of that almost is how very often at the minute we're pushed towards having efficient communication. Communication that can be said in short form videos or in reels or in a quick post. And particularly communication that is inspired both in the use of and in reading AI. But I do think that there are aspects of communication that we lose when we try to be too efficient. For example, when you look online and try to get communication help or look for strategies to improve your presentation style or your pitching, there is a lot of focus on articulation. But as someone who personally struggled quite a lot with communication clarity when I was younger, growing up with a lisp, I can tell you that perfect clarity and articulation is not necessarily as important as we like to make it seem. You can speak very well and get your message across in a lot of ways that don't involve perfect articulate sounds and words. For example, communication is much more about how we use our body, how we change our cadence, how we express with our face and the narrative that we're telling, and a lot less about whether the sharpness of your T sound or whether your SH and your S are perfectly distinguishable, proof in the pudding. I also think that we're losing an appreciation for the fact that filler words and words even like play a role in communication because they demonstrate authenticity in how we speak. We've been trained in some way to treat using an or an at times as an indicator that we're not speaking well or that we're not intelligent. And another part of this tangent quickly is that people think that emotional expression is unintelligent, when this is just simply not the case. Maybe an and an won't show up in a Claude script or on Gemini or ChatGPT, but that's because they're not human. But humans speak in ways that express how they're feeling and try to close off sentences. Your filler words very often are probably coming from a place of patience or anticipation. They come when the brain and the narrative aren't necessarily aligned in timing, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either. And when we express emotion in our sentences and in our messages, it can be very messy, but that's not a bad thing. I guess my point is that losing some authenticity in the way that you speak is not going to do you any benefits in the long run. Because when we talk to others, when we go down garden paths and have coffee conversations, it's not that perfect dialogue that you might read in a book, and it's not prescribed efficiency that you might get off a computer. And it's definitely not perfect, but that's what makes conversations fun in the first place. Communication opens doors for you. It sets up jobs and passions, it starts relationships, and it builds connection. And if we start to take out the joy from the communication, then we're slowly taking out the joy from the story, your story. And the more we do that, the more we're forced to treat our communication as an efficient machine, the more we cannot distinguish ourselves from the machines. So I guess my point is that I want people to feel like they can communicate in a broken but authentic manner, where you don't need to be perfectly articulate, and you don't need to always avoid the filler words, and you definitely don't need to be efficient. Yes, we like the destination of a story, but it's the journey to get there that builds the character in a way. Anyway. There's my rant. Just something to think about.